wake up one morning, look into the mirror and feel it. The silent panic of wasted time. There's no sound, no dramatic realization, just a quiet weight pressing on your chest. The kind that whispers, "What have I really done with my life?" Days have melted into weeks, weeks into years, and somewhere between yesterday and today, your dreams began to decay. You can almost hear them. Faint echoes of ambition, now buried beneath endless distractions and comfortable routines. You tell yourself you're busy, that you're trying, that life just got complicated. But deep down, you know the truth. You haven't been building. You've been drifting. Like a ship that once set sail with fire in its sails, now circling aimlessly in calm waters, waiting for a wind that will never come. Seneca warned us about this over 2,000 years ago. You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. We panic about trivial inconveniences, being late, saying the wrong thing, missing a message, yet we move through our days as if tomorrow is guaranteed. We fear discomfort but not decay. We avoid pain but not waste. Modern psychology now calls this procrastination, but the Stoics understood it as something deeper, a moral failure of perception. Your mind, addicted to comfort, bargains away your potential one dopamine hit at a time. You scroll for stimulation, mistaking it for rest. You plan endlessly, mistaking it for progress. You talk about what you'll do tomorrow, mistaking that word for hope when it's really poison. Tomorrow, the most seductive lie ever told by the mind. It promises redemption without effort, change without discomfort, and greatness without sacrifice. But tomorrow never arrives. It's the soft lullaby the mind hums to keep you asleep inside the prison of potential. And the cruelest part? You believe it. Every not today is a brick in the wall between who you are and who you could be. Every later becomes the silent thief of your becoming. Time isn't stolen from you. You surrender it, willingly, passively, silently. The Stoics didn't romanticize time. They saw it for what it truly is, the one currency no man can reclaim. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of the most powerful empire on earth, wrote in his journal, "Do not act as if you had 10,000 years to live. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." He didn't mean be moral in the shallow sense. He meant be alive, truly alive. To act with presence, to move with urgency, to build with purpose. He understood that you can lose wealth, status, or relationships and rebuild them. But once a day passes unclaimed, it is gone forever. Neuroscience has finally caught up to this truth. Each time you choose comfort over effort, your brain reinforces that pattern. Neural pathways, those invisible grooves of habit, deepen with every act of avoidance. Eventually, your mind becomes wired for hesitation. The longer you postpone, the more automatic postponing becomes. And the longer you feed that circuit, the harder it becomes to break free. Your brain doesn't care whether you chase greatness or mediocrity. It only repeats what you reward. And right now, many reward distraction, reward indecision, reward mental drift. But just as easily, the mind can be rewired for strength, for discipline, for action. The Stoics were, in essence, the world's first neuroscientists, experimenting with the mind long before the term existed. They understood that your thoughts shape your emotions shape your actions, and your actions sculpt your destiny. Epictetus, once a slave, rose to become one of the greatest teachers of freedom because he mastered one truth. You may not control what happens to you, but you control how you respond. And your response, your daily deliberate action, is the bridge between existence and excellence. So, ask yourself honestly, how long have you been negotiating with your own potential? How many mornings have you opened your eyes, already aware that you're living below your capacity? How many promises have you made to yourself that you've quietly broken? Not because you can't, but because comfort whispered more convincingly than conviction. This is the point where something inside you must snap. Not in anger, but in awakening. Because every wasted moment compounds into a future you didn't choose. Every hesitation builds momentum in the wrong direction. And every unclaimed day becomes evidence that you've surrendered your own story. The Stoics believed life is short, but wide. and every decision either expands or narrows that width. You cannot lengthen your life, but you can deepen it. You can live so deliberately, so intentionally, that even a single year of disciplined living outweighs a decade of drifting. So as you stand before that mirror, the same one that's reflected your excuses, your plans, your waiting, make a different choice. Stop rehearsing your potential. Start living it. Stop talking about your purpose. Start building it. Stop treating time as infinite. It isn't. Because one day the mirror won't show possibilities. It will show the sum of every moment you surrendered. And that's the moment every Stoic prepared for. Not with fear, but with fire. If you feel this truth in your bones, if you're done negotiating with delay, then this message is for you. Subscribe to True Stoic Way. Not for entertainment, for transformation. Because from this moment forward, your time is no longer something you spend. It's something you build. Each morning is a battlefield. Your alarm is not a sound, it's a summons. That faint vibration, that piercing tone at dawn, is not just calling you to start your day. It's summoning you to war. A war between comfort and conviction. Between the man you are and the man you know you could be. And most days that battle is lost before your feet even touch the floor. Marcus Aurelius understood this fight better than anyone. In his journal he wrote, "At dawn, when you are unwilling to rise, have this thought ready. I am rising to the work of a human being." The Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man on earth, still had to remind himself to rise. He could have indulged in luxury, slept in silk, and justified every comfort. Yet he refused to be ruled by weakness. He woke not as a ruler, but as a human. And that is exactly what you must do. Because the moment you open your eyes, a voice begins whispering, 5 more minutes, you deserve rest, you can start tomorrow. That voice is not your friend. It is the subtle assassin of potential. And the longer you listen, the quieter your fire becomes. You must stop negotiating with laziness. Each negotiation weakens the foundation of who you are. Every time you say later, you quietly betray yourself. You promise discipline, but deliver delay. You say you'll build, but you surrender to stillness. Laziness doesn't strike in dramatic moments. It seeps in through the smallest compromises. And over time, those compromises erode your self-respect. Laziness wears many faces. Sometimes it looks like physical fatigue, the ache that convinces you to skip the gym, or the subtle comfort of staying seated when movement is needed. Sometimes it hides in your mind, endless planning, reading, researching, convincing yourself that thinking about progress is the same as making progress. It hides behind well-crafted excuses. I'm preparing, I'm learning, I'm almost ready. But the truth is, you are stalling. Other times it is emotional, the avoidance of difficult conversations, the refusal to face uncomfortable truths, the decision to remain silent rather than honest. And then there's spiritual laziness, the most dangerous of all, when you stop questioning whether your life aligns with your values, when comfort becomes your creed and mediocrity your prayer. Every one of these forms feeds the next. When your body is weak, your mind loses sharpness. When your mind is dull, your emotions retreat from truth. When your emotions avoid truth, your spirit drifts into apathy. And that's how entire lives are wasted, not through one catastrophic failure, but through thousands of small, silent surrenders. Science confirms what the Stoics already knew. The more you give in to ease, the more your brain learns to crave it. Each time you choose comfort over effort, a surge of dopamine rewards your inaction. You feel safe, soothed, justified, and in that moment, your brain is being trained to repeat the cycle. The more you obey that impulse, the deeper the neural pathway becomes. Soon, hesitation becomes automatic. You no longer decide to delay, you just do. But the same mechanism that enslaves you can set you free. Every act of discipline rewires your brain in the opposite direction. Every time you rise when you'd rather sleep, you strengthen a different circuit, one built on command, not compliance. The mind is clay. It will take the shape of whatever habit you mold it into. Choose ease, and it will become fragile. Choose effort, and it will become unbreakable. Each morning is proof of this. The moment your alarm rings, you are being tested. Will you surrender to the small voice that whispers of comfort, or will you rise to the one that commands growth? Every "not today" becomes a brick in the wall between you and your potential. Every "I will" followed by inaction becomes a fracture in your integrity. No one wins wars by negotiating with the enemy. The Stoics practiced what they called voluntary discomfort, the deliberate choice to face difficulty when comfort was available. Seneca slept on hard surfaces when he could afford silk. Marcus trained his body when he could have ordered others to move for him. Epictetus, once a slave, learned to master his mind so completely that no circumstance could enslave it again. They understood that the path to freedom runs straight through discomfort. In our age, voluntary discomfort takes new forms. The cold shower when your body craves warmth. The digital fast when your hand instinctively reaches for your phone. The early workout when the bed feels like a sanctuary. The moment of silence when the world screams for distraction. Each act of deliberate hardship is a declaration. I own myself. Every time you choose challenge over comfort, you train your mind to follow purpose instead of pleasure. Look at the people who have built extraordinary lives. They are not superhuman. They are simply consistent warriors in this same internal battle. The man who wakes early to train is not addicted to pain. He's allergic to weakness. The student who studies when her friends party is not missing out. She's investing in a life her peers will one day envy. The entrepreneur who works late into the night isn't chasing wealth. He's chasing mastery. They all understand the same truth. Greatness is not created in grand moments of motivation, but in the quiet repetition of disciplined action. Discipline is not punishment. It is the highest form of self-respect. It is proof that you can trust yourself. When you say you'll do something and you follow through even when no one is watching, you build an invisible fortress of integrity around your soul. You begin to see yourself as reliable, consistent, grounded. Confidence is not built from success. It is built from self-trust. And that trust is forged through discipline. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your spirit stands taller. Every time you break one, something sacred within you bends. The Stoics believed that true peace comes not from pleasure, but from alignment, when your actions, words, and values all move in the same direction. Discipline is that alignment in motion. It is not about denial, it is about direction. The world will tell you that comfort is the goal, to rest, to relax, to avoid struggle. But comfort is a silent prison, gilded and pleasant. It doesn't break your body, it dissolves your will. Discipline is the key that unlocks that cage. When you act with discipline, you no longer serve your moods. You no longer wait to feel ready. You act because action itself becomes your nature. You do not seek motivation. You create momentum. So if you recognize yourself in these words, if you've spent too many mornings negotiating with fatigue, too many days promising change and delivering excuses, then this is the line in the sand. Forgive yourself for what's behind you. The past is unchangeable, but the future is pliable. Draw a clear boundary right here. From this day forward, no more negotiations with weakness. Rise when the alarm calls, even when your body resists. Work when you're tired. Learn when you're bored. Move when you'd rather rest. These are not punishments. They are proof of power. Each act of discipline whispers to your soul, I am capable. I am in command. Your future self is waiting. Watching you right now from across time, hoping you'll fight for him. One day he will look back, either grateful for your strength or broken by your surrender. Every moment you choose discomfort, you build his foundation. Every time you bow to ease, you steal from his future. The Stoics taught that freedom is earned through mastery of the self. Comfort enslaves, discipline liberates. The battle will never disappear, but your response can become automatic. You may still hear the whispers of laziness, but they will no longer control you. You'll rise because it's who you are, not because you feel like it, but because you've become the kind of person who does what must be done. Repeat these words until they no longer sound like motivation, but identity. I refuse to negotiate with laziness. Seneca once wrote, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." Those words have echoed through centuries because they cut to the heart of why so many wander through life exhausted yet directionless. You can have energy, resources, even ambition. But without clarity, you will drift endlessly, confusing movement for progress. The winds of opportunity, luck, or circumstance cannot serve a sailor who has no chosen destination. Most people aren't lost because they lack intelligence or potential. They're lost because their inner compass spins aimlessly. They wake up each morning reacting to noise, the messages, notifications, obligations, and distractions that pull their attention in 100 directions. The world rewards reactivity, not reflection. Every app, every headline, every voice around you demands your immediate response, fragmenting your focus and dulling your awareness. This constant bombardment creates what modern psychology calls decision fatigue, the slow depletion of your willpower by an endless stream of trivial choices. By the time you face the decisions that actually matter, you're already too tired to make them well. Clarity dies in the noise, and noise has never been louder. We live in an age where confusion is profitable, where algorithms are designed to keep you scrolling, reacting, consuming, not building. The Stoics warned us about this long before screens existed. They understood that a mind scattered by every external event cannot govern itself. To live intentionally, you must first silence the world long enough to hear your own voice. Ask yourself, what are you really building? Not what you're busy with, not what others expect from you, but what you are deliberately constructing with the limited days of your life. Most people never answer that question honestly because it terrifies them. It's easier to stay occupied than to stay aware. Easier to chase distraction than to confront the emptiness of unclear purpose. Seneca's port isn't just a metaphor, it's a demand for direction. To live like a Stoic is to live with precision. You cannot control the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You cannot choose your storms, but you can choose your course. Clarity begins with a confrontation, with yourself. Sit alone, without music, without screens, without anyone else's expectations echoing in your head, and ask the questions most avoid. Who do I want to become in the next 5 years? What specific skills do I want to master, and why? What kind of physical health, mental clarity, financial stability, and emotional resilience do I want to embody? What problems in the world call to me that I alone feel compelled to solve? What will I regret not having done when my time runs short? But here is where most fail. They give vague, poetic answers that sound noble but mean nothing. I want to be happy. I want to be successful. I want to make a difference. These are not answers. They are escape routes disguised as goals. Vagueness is the enemy of achievement. Precision is the foundation of power. The Stoics believe that vague intention leads to vague effort, and vague effort leads to vague lives. Clarity requires brutality, the willingness to define what truly matters and to eliminate everything that doesn't. This is not a gentle process. It will feel like tearing away parts of yourself, because you will have to abandon paths that once gave you comfort, friends who drain your energy, habits that numb your awareness. But once you strip away the noise, what remains is truth. When Marcus Aurelius wrote his Meditations, he wasn't crafting literature, he was forging clarity. Every sentence was an argument with himself, a sharpening of purpose. He didn't write for approval, he wrote for alignment. His journal was a daily mirror, reflecting back the man he was and the man he was becoming. That is the practice of Stoic journaling, not a diary of events, but a record of evolution. Each day, you confront yourself on paper, your fears, your choices, your priorities, and you rewrite the script until your actions match your ideals. This practice is where the personal manifesto is born, a written declaration of who you are, what you stand for, and what you refuse to compromise. It is your anchor in a world of shifting currents. Begin by defining your core values, the principles that guide your behavior regardless of circumstance. Honesty, courage, discipline, compassion, integrity. Then write your non-negotiables, the boundaries you will not cross even when pressured, even when tired, even when no one is watching. Maybe it's your morning routine, your commitment to physical training, your dedication to financial discipline, or your refusal to waste time in meaningless company. Finally, create your vision timeline. Not a fantasy, but a blueprint. Where will you stand 1 year from now? 3 years? 5? Who must you become to reach that point? When you know your why, your how becomes automatic. When your values are clear, decisions become simple, even if they aren't easy. You stop chasing every new idea, every spark of inspiration, every external opinion. Instead, you move with the calm certainty of someone who knows their direction. The world is full of people who confuse motion with meaning. They sprint in circles, mistaking exhaustion for progress. But when you have ruthless clarity, you move slower and strike deeper. Every action serves a purpose. Every yes and no becomes intentional. You stop apologizing for prioritizing your mission because you finally understand what it costs to drift. Yet, clarity must be protected. The moment you gain focus, the world will try to steal it back. Social media will tempt you to compare your progress. Friends will invite you into distractions that disguise themselves as relaxation. The world profits from your confusion. But you are not like most people. You are not casual about your existence. You are a stoic builder, someone who constructs their life brick by brick, thought by thought. You must guard your clarity like a warrior guards his weapon. When external forces try to pull you off course, return to your manifesto. Read it aloud until it feels like armor. Reread your journal until your purpose feels undeniable. Ask every decision a single question. Does this move me closer to who I want to become, or further away? If the answer is unclear, the answer is no. True clarity is not sterile, it is alive. It evolves with you. Each day you grow, refine, and recommit. The Stoic practice is not about perfection, it's about alignment. You will fail, you will falter, but you will never drift unconsciously again. There's an ancient power that comes from living this way, a quiet intensity that others can feel. You begin to speak less and act more. You stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned the right to understand. You walk differently, rooted, intentional, unshaken. And when confusion creeps back in, as it always will, you return to your compass, your values, your manifesto, your written words. Clarity is not something you find once. It's something you cultivate daily. If you're building clarity, build with us. The True Stoic Way is your community of builders, not dreamers. We're not here to discuss purpose. We're here to live it. Remember this: life doesn't reward those who want everything. It rewards those who know exactly what they're after. When your mind is clear, your actions align. When your actions align, your destiny unfolds naturally. Clarity is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing what matters and refusing to let anything else dilute your focus. And once you live with that level of precision, even chaos becomes manageable, because you know your port, your direction, and your purpose. In a world where everyone is shouting, clarity is the rarest form of power. Hold it, protect it, and live it every single day. Most people spend their entire lives waiting to feel ready. They tell themselves that when motivation arrives, they'll act. When the mood is right, when the stars align, when inspiration strikes. But the Stoics knew better. They understood that waiting to feel like acting is a trap, because emotion is the most unreliable compass a human being can follow. Motivation is a spark, bright, loud, and brief. Momentum is fire, quiet, steady, and unstoppable. Motivation comes and goes with your moods. Momentum carries you forward regardless of them. The modern world has built an entire industry around chasing motivation. Endless videos, quotes, dopamine spikes disguised as inspiration. But you don't need to be motivated to change your life. You need movement. Because movement, not mood, creates motion in the mind. Psychologists today call it the dopamine-driven loop. Each time you imagine achieving something, your brain releases a small surge of dopamine, a taste of satisfaction before any effort has been made. You scroll through success stories, feel inspired for a moment, and your brain rewards you as if you've already acted. That's why people get addicted to motivation. It feels like progress, but it's just mental candy. The Stoics understood this long before neuroscience gave it a name. They saw that emotion without action is illusion. Seneca wrote that, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality," and this applies to achievement as well. We live in imagined victories while neglecting real ones. The difference between dopamine and momentum is this. Dopamine fades when you stop consuming, but momentum builds when you start doing. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need the right feeling. You just need to begin. Think of water carving through stone, not by force but by persistence. Every drop, insignificant on its own, shapes the mountain over time. That's how habits work. Small actions, repeated daily, carve out the person you become. The Stoics called this praxis, practice. They believed wisdom wasn't something you studied. It was something you lived, repeatedly, until it became instinct. That's how athletes train when no one's watching, how writers show up to blank pages, how builders lay bricks, how entrepreneurs grind through quiet years before success. They act before they feel inspired, and because they act, the feeling follows. An elite runner doesn't ask herself if she's motivated to train in the rain. She runs because running is who she is. A writer doesn't wait for the muse. He writes until the muse has no choice but to meet him halfway. A Stoic doesn't wait for peace to begin discipline. He begins discipline to find peace. Emotion follows action. Always. The modern mind has inverted this truth. We think feelings must lead and actions must follow. But the Stoics, and now cognitive scientists, teach the opposite. Behavior shapes emotion. When you move your body, your brain aligns with that motion. When you act courageously, even while afraid, your mind recalibrates around bravery. You do not wait to feel confident before acting. You act, and confidence grows as a consequence. Momentum is built through small, consistent choices that seem insignificant in isolation, but compound exponentially over time. Read for 10 minutes a day, and by year's end you've consumed more wisdom than most. Gather in a lifetime of scrolling. Train for 20 minutes a day, and your body transforms not from one heroic workout, but from hundreds of quiet repetitions. Save a little every week, and financial stability emerges not from luck, but from patience. These are compounding habits, the Stoics' secret weapon against mediocrity. The Stoics called this steady progress, and they measured growth not in grand gestures, but in the discipline of showing up. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." He understood that resistance itself is the forge. When you act without waiting for inspiration, you use resistance as a weight that strengthens your will. Modern neuroscience confirms this. Each time you overcome hesitation, you activate your brain's reward system, not through fantasy, but through fulfillment. You teach your mind that doing hard things feels good. Over time, this rewires your relationship with effort. The very act of starting becomes the satisfaction. Start small. Set what I call daily minimums, the smallest possible version of important actions that you can maintain even on your worst days. 10 push-ups when you don't want to work out. 1 paragraph when writing feels impossible. A single page of reading before bed. 5 minutes of meditation before checking your phone. The goal is not perfection. It's consistency. Daily minimums remove the need for emotional permission. You no longer ask, "Do I feel like it?" You simply do what you've promised yourself to do. These micro-victories build identity, and identity builds destiny. Each day you complete your minimums. You prove to yourself that you're reliable, and that proof, over time, becomes unshakable confidence. Most people wait for clarity, then act. The Stoic acts, and clarity follows. Because once you move, momentum builds. Once momentum builds, emotion changes. You stop needing to get motivated, because you're already in motion, and motion sustains itself. The law of momentum is merciless but fair. If you do nothing, inertia deepens. If you do something, even something small, inertia breaks. And once broken, even a small push can change the entire trajectory of your life. Think of a boulder resting on a slope. It doesn't move until the slightest nudge dislodges it, but once it starts rolling, it no longer needs constant force. That's momentum. Action creates its own energy. The first step is the hardest, but it's also the only one you control. So instead of chasing motivation, chase evidence. Each act of follow-through becomes proof that you are someone who does what they say they will do. That proof builds momentum faster than any emotional high ever could. Because confidence isn't a feeling, it's a record of promises kept. You won't always want to act. There will be mornings when fatigue grips your bones, when your mind tells you to delay, when the world feels indifferent. That's precisely when your actions matter most. The Stoics believed that consistency during difficulty is the truest form of virtue, doing what's right, not because it feels good, but because it aligns with your nature. Marcus Aurelius faced plagues, betrayal, and war, yet still wrote daily about self-discipline. Epictetus taught that even in slavery, one can control their response. They lived the principle of momentum, choosing progress in every circumstance, however small. You can apply this same principle today. Don't try to overhaul your life in one burst of motivation. Build systems that make action inevitable. Prepare your environment to serve your goals. Keep your workout clothes beside your bed, your journal open on your desk, your distractions out of reach. Make good actions easier and bad ones harder. This isn't about willpower, it's about architecture. Momentum thrives in structure. Motivation collapses without it. Once you begin moving with consistency, something extraordinary happens. Your brain begins to crave effort. What once felt difficult becomes natural. The mind learns to find satisfaction not in comfort, but in motion itself. Effort becomes its own reward. That is the Stoic state, euthymia, a calm determination born from inner alignment. And one day people will look at you and say, "You're so motivated." But you will smile knowing the truth. It wasn't motivation at all. It was movement. It was momentum. It was the disciplined repetition of 1,000 small steps taken when you didn't feel like taking them. If this message resonates, remember, you're not alone. The true Stoic way exists to keep your momentum alive. This is a community of builders, not spectators, of doers, not dreamers. When your energy fades, we remind you that momentum doesn't depend on feeling, it depends on commitment. Stop waiting for the spark. You already have fire within you. Let action fan it into something unstoppable. Because once you move, the universe moves with you. Momentum is a force that obeys one rule. It always rewards movement. Begin now. However small, however imperfect, begin. And when the voice in your head whispers, "Maybe tomorrow," answer it like a Stoic. No. Today. You become the echo of the 5 voices closest to you. Every word, every action, every habit from those around you shapes the architecture of your mind, quietly, invisibly, and relentlessly. Most people underestimate this truth until it's too late. They believe they are independent thinkers, immune to influence, yet every thought they repeat, every standard they tolerate, every value they absorb, is borrowed from the environment they've allowed to surround them. Epictetus warned his students about this centuries ago. Avoid fraternizing with negative people, for they increase your likelihood of sinking to their level. He wasn't condemning others. He was describing a law of human nature. You absorb the emotional and moral climate of the people near you, just as your body absorbs the temperature of the room you're in. Modern psychology and neuroscience have proven him right. We now know that mirror neurons, the brain's empathy circuits, fire, not only when we act, but when we observe others acting. When you spend time with disciplined, driven individuals, your brain literally mirrors their focus and energy. When you spend time with complainers, quitters, or cynics, your brain mirrors their resignation. Energy is contagious. So is apathy. You don't just adopt the behaviors of your circle. You adopt their emotional tone, their standards of effort, their expectations of life. If the people around you treat mediocrity as normal, excellence will begin to feel unnecessary. If your friends rationalize failure, you'll start mistaking excuses for wisdom. The standards of your environment become the ceiling of your potential. Look closely at your life. The people you spend the most time with, what do they talk about? Do they build, or do they gossip? Do they act, or do they justify? Do they challenge you to evolve, or do they quietly encourage you to remain small so they can stay comfortable? The harsh truth is, that many friendships are built not on shared growth, but on shared stagnation. People bond over mutual distractions, over complaining about their jobs, their relationships, the unfairness of the world. But those conversations, repeated often enough, become emotional gravity. They pull you down. They dull the spark that once drove you to rise. A builder, on the other hand, operates differently. Builders wake up early, not because they must, but because they cannot stand still while their potential remains unused. Builders seek out silence because in that silence, they hear the architecture of their next step. Builders measure progress not by applause, but by alignment, by whether their actions still honor the vision they committed to. They don't chase approval, they chase refinement. When you spend time with builders, you feel it. Their presence doesn't drain you, it expands you. They don't compete for attention, they compete for discipline. They don't talk about how hard things are, they talk about how to make them better. Around builders, your excuses sound weak, your goals sound small, and your standards begin to rise naturally. Marcus Aurelius, despite his imperial status, warned himself of this daily. Surrounded by senators who would flatter and agree with anything he said, he reminded himself, "Be like a rock on which the waves break, but it stands firm." He understood that even as emperor, he had to maintain psychological distance from those who might soften his integrity. To lead well, he needed solitude, time away from voices that could distort his principles. Solitude is not loneliness, it's purification. It is the place where your mind reclaims its shape after being molded by the world. In solitude, you remember what you truly value. You reconnect with your inner voice, the one that gets drowned out by constant company. The Stoics practice solitude deliberately, retreating into quiet reflection to strengthen their independence of thought. Temporary solitude is better than permanent mediocrity. If you must walk alone for a season to preserve your purpose, do it. If you must spend nights in silence, rather than in rooms filled with empty noise, do it. Because isolation is temporary, but the corrosion of your character through weak company lasts far longer. This doesn't mean you must cut people off harshly or live as a hermit. It means you must become ruthlessly selective about who earns your time, your attention, and your trust. You cannot build a strong life on weak foundations, and people are the foundation of your environment. Start by observing your circle without sentiment. Who among them embodies the values you admire? Who consistently acts, learns, and grows? Who speaks truth even when it's uncomfortable? Those are your allies. And who avoids effort? Who complains without change? Who drains your focus with triviality? Those are not enemies, but they are anchors, and no man rises while dragging anchors behind him. As you begin to distance yourself from dreamers, something remarkable happens. Space opens, and in that space, new energy arrives. You'll start attracting people who operate on a higher frequency, those who build, who discipline, who dream and do. But that shift only occurs when you first embody the qualities you seek. You cannot attract builders while living like a dreamer. Builders recognize their own. They are drawn to discipline, consistency, and quiet excellence. So become the kind of person that builders want to stand beside. Build your health, build your knowledge, build your integrity, build your word into something sacred, build your habits until they become reputation. Because a builder's mindset is the modern Stoic ideal. It is the refusal to drift, the commitment to constructive action. Builders don't chase happiness, they create it through order. They don't seek validation, they earn respect through persistence. They don't talk about purpose, they embody it. Their lives are their message, and when you live this way, your very presence becomes influence. Others will feel your energy shift. Some will distance themselves because your growth threatens their comfort. Others will draw closer because your seriousness reminds them of their own buried potential. Don't chase either reaction. Simply continue to build. Soon you'll realize that the true purpose of community is not comfort, but elevation. A circle of builders is like a forge. It refines everyone within it. Iron sharpens iron. Character sharpens character. The more you surround yourself with people who act with discipline, the less room remains for self-pity or delay. Be deliberate in where you stand and with whom. The wrong crowd will turn you soft without you noticing. The right crowd will make you stronger, even when you're tired. If you ever feel lonely on this path, remember, solitude is not absence, it's preparation. You are clearing space for stronger alliances, deeper purpose, and cleaner focus. The world is full of noise, but few are truly building. When you find them, protect that connection like a treasure. You don't owe anyone your stagnation. You owe yourself your evolution. Choose your company with the precision of a sculptor choosing his tools, because your life will be shaped by what surrounds it. Say it aloud until it becomes conviction. I choose builders over dreamers. You live in an age where distraction has become a way of life. Every moment of silence is invaded by noise, every pause filled with flashing lights and infinite scrolls. You reach for your phone without thinking. Your thumb moves before your mind even decides. You call it checking, but deep down you know you're escaping, not from boredom, from yourself. Seneca warned of this long before screens existed. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. What he meant was simple. The mind, left untamed, will invent its own entertainment, its own fears, its own chaos. And today, technology has weaponized that chaos. The modern world doesn't just sell products, it sells distraction, packaged as comfort. You are surrounded by invisible engineers whose job is not to improve your life, but to fragment your attention. Every swipe, every notification, every new episode is a hit of dopamine, the same chemical your brain releases when you eat, win, or fall in love. These digital doses trick your nervous system into thinking you've accomplished something when, in reality, you've only consumed. This is the dopamine loop. Stimulation without satisfaction, input without impact. The more you indulge it, the more your brain craves it. Your mind learns that ease equals pleasure and effort equals pain. The Stoics saw this pattern centuries ago, though they used different language. They called it slavery, the condition of being ruled by what should serve you. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome, had access to every pleasure imaginable, yet he warned himself daily, "You become what you give your attention to." He understood that the mind is shaped by its focus. If you feed it chaos, it becomes chaotic. If you feed it wisdom, it becomes wise. Look around. You have unlimited access to information, yet less understanding than ever. You know every celebrity's life, but not your own purpose. You can binge entire worlds on a screen, yet struggle to stay present in your own. You've confused consumption with creation, and that confusion is robbing you of your potential. When you scroll endlessly, you're not relaxing. You're numbing. You're silencing the quiet voice inside you that asks the hard questions. Am I growing? Am I building? Am I wasting this day? That silence, the stillness you avoid, is where clarity and growth begin. But you can't hear it over the noise. Every hour spent consuming what doesn't serve your soul is an hour stolen from the person you could become. Do the math. Just 30 minutes a day lost to mindless scrolling adds up to nearly 8 full days a year. Replace that with deliberate learning, and you gain 8 days of mastery instead of 8 days of decay. That's the difference between living reactively and living intentionally. The Stoics would tell you, consumption itself is not evil. It's unexamined consumption that poisons the mind. The solution is not abstinence, it's awareness. You must become intentional about what you allow into your consciousness. Not every book deserves your attention. Not every video earns your focus. Not every voice deserves a place in your mind. Think of your attention as sacred currency, the rarest resource you possess. Every time you give it to something meaningless, you make a transaction you can never reverse. The question is not whether you'll spend it, it's whether you'll invest it. To live as a modern Stoic, you must learn to consume strategically. I call it the 70-20-10 rule for intentional learning. 70% of your consumption should be devoted to deep learning, books, lectures, or content that builds knowledge and skill. 20% should be inspiration, stories, art, or philosophy that remind you why you strive. And the last 10%? Entertainment, simple joy, earned through discipline, not as escape, but as balance. This is how you reclaim your mind in the attention economy. Every time you choose to read instead of scroll, to think instead of react, you rewire your dopamine system. You teach your brain that growth is rewarding, not just stimulation. Replace 30 minutes of consumption with 30 minutes of study. And over a year, that's nearly 200 hours of accumulated wisdom. 200 hours that compound into confidence, clarity, and capability. The mathematics of mastery are unforgiving but precise. Small investments of focus compound like interest. A single hour of learning each day equals more than 300 hours in a year. The equivalent of mastering a new skill, reading 20 books, or building a foundation that most will never begin. The difference between the distracted and the disciplined isn't time. It's intention. Seneca believed that the wise man does not reject pleasure but rules it. Pleasure was never the enemy, dependency was. When you consume without consciousness, you surrender control. When you choose deliberately, you reclaim it. The same phone that wastes your life can also transform it, if you decide to use it as a tool instead of a master. Ask yourself before every click, will this feed my mind or drain it? Will this move me forward or keep me numb? Most won't ask these questions because the answers are uncomfortable, but the Stoic asks them daily, because he knows that unchecked consumption leads to unseen corrosion. To practice modern Stoicism is to rewire your relationship with consumption. Make your leisure earned. Make your learning deliberate. Use your attention the way an architect uses stone, placing each block with purpose. And yes, the world will call you extreme. They will say you're too serious, too disciplined, too detached. But they will also wonder how you move with such calm focus in a culture that trembles with distraction. Let them wonder. You will be too busy building to explain. Each time you resist the urge to escape into consumption, you strengthen the muscle of awareness. Each moment you choose silence over stimulation, your mind becomes sharper. Each day you direct your attention toward something meaningful. You become wealthier in the only currency that truly matters: presence. If you seek real wisdom, not distraction, subscribe and walk this true Stoic way daily. You don't need to abandon the modern world to master it. You need only to reclaim your attention, to own your time, and to consume consciously. Because what you consume becomes what you care about, and what you care about becomes who you are. Feed your mind like you would feed a warrior preparing for battle. Clean, intentional, and with purpose. The future belongs not to those who know the most, but to those who can focus the longest. So close the endless tabs. Put the phone face down. Open the book. Breathe. Think. Choose what deserves your attention. Because attention, once given, is gone forever. But when invested wisely, it returns tenfold in clarity, wisdom, and peace. Say it now and live it daily. I consume wisdom, not distractions. Most people never become great because they cannot tolerate being bored. They chase excitement the way a drowning man chases air, desperate for the next hit of novelty, the next flash of stimulation to keep the mind from sitting still. But the Stoics knew that stillness isn't death. It's the birthplace of mastery. Marcus Aurelius, the emperor-philosopher who ruled one of history's most powerful empires, lived surrounded by noise, politics, war, luxury, temptation. Yet he reminded himself daily, it is not death that a man should fear, but never beginning to live. And to truly live, he learned to find peace in repetition, meaning in routine, purpose in stillness. The modern mind, by contrast, is addicted to motion, not progress, just motion. We live in a culture engineered for novelty addiction. Our devices reward us for distraction. Every scroll, every buzz, every notification releases a microdose of dopamine, a chemical whisper saying, something new is happening. This constant stimulation rewires the brain to crave variety, not depth. It creates what scientists call continuous partial attention, the state of being slightly engaged with everything and fully present with nothing. That's why most people can't focus for more than a few minutes. Their minds are trained for fragmentation. They move from one video to the next, one app to the next, one half-finished goal to the next, never staying long enough to master anything. The result? A generation drowning in noise but starving for meaning. The Stoics, by contrast, mastered the art of preferred indifference, learning to value consistency over excitement, focus over novelty. They practiced being fully present with whatever task was in front of them, whether it was leading an empire, cleaning a floor, or writing a single sentence. They didn't seek constant stimulation. They sought constant purpose. Mastery in any field demands boredom. The monk who meditates for hours on end, the athlete who drills the same movement thousands of times, the musician who practices one scale until it's woven into muscle memory, the coder who spends long nights refining a single line of logic, the philosopher who rewrites his thoughts until truth emerges clean. What all of them share is the ability to stay, to remain when the mind screams for escape. The modern world celebrates excitement, but greatness hides behind repetition. Every craft that matters is built on cycles so slow, they appear still from the outside. The violinist repeating a single note until tone becomes instinct. The craftsman sanding wood until imperfection disappears. The Stoic reciting his meditations until wisdom becomes reflex. Each of them is doing what most cannot. They're mastering boredom. Because boredom is not your enemy. It is the test of your devotion. It asks, do you want the thrill of beginning or the power of finishing? Every great achievement is born in that quiet space where nothing feels exciting, where progress is invisible, and where most people give up. To master boredom, you must first change your relationship with it. Stop labeling it as negative. Boredom is simply the absence of cheap stimulation. It's a sign that your mind is adjusting to stillness, detoxing from the noise. When you feel restless, you are standing at the threshold of growth. The longer you stay, the stronger you become. Begin with presence. Train yourself to be where you are completely. When you walk, walk. When you work, work. When you read, read. When you train, train. Most people never do one thing at a time. They do everything halfway. They check their phone mid-sentence, drift off mid-task, live in fragments. But focus is like a muscle. It grows with resistance. Practice what I call focus endurance. Start with short sessions of undistracted work. 10 minutes, then 15, then 30. Each time your attention drifts, bring it back like a warrior returning to the battlefield. Don't scold yourself for wandering. Repetition is the training. Every return builds strength. Over time, your capacity for sustained attention will grow, and with it, your capacity for depth. The Stoics would remind you, mastery is not a flash of brilliance but a lifetime of disciplined repetition. It's not found in the thrill of the new but in the depth of the familiar. The world may see boredom as empty, but for those who understand, it's the silence in which genius speaks. You can feel this truth in every discipline that endures. The artist mixing shades until the color finally breathes. The martial artist repeating a single motion until it becomes pure instinct. The builder who measures, cuts, and builds until his work aligns perfectly with his vision. They are all enduring the same stillness, the same monotony, and transforming it into greatness. Your challenge is not to eliminate boredom, but to elevate it. When it arrives, recognize it as the signal that you're finally doing work that matters. Work beyond entertainment, beyond instant gratification. Instead of fleeing, lean into it. Let boredom become the forge where your focus is refined. Design your life around steady rhythms instead of constant novelty. Keep a morning ritual. Read deeply, not widely. Return to your craft every day at the same time, even when nothing inside you feels inspired. Build systems that don't depend on excitement, because excitement fades. Systems endure. And when the urge to escape returns, when your hand reaches for your phone, when your mind seeks distraction, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what if I stayed? What if I allowed this silence to shape me instead of running from it? That single choice, repeated daily, separates the amateurs from the masters, the distracted from the disciplined, the dreamers from the builders. Boredom is the gym where your mind trains for greatness. Every minute you endure it, you're lifting the weight of stillness. Every moment you stay present, you build mental endurance that the distracted will never know. While they chase stimulation, you cultivate stillness, and stillness is strength. Years from now, when people look at your work, your discipline, your calm, they will call it talent. But you'll know the truth. It wasn't talent. It was patience. It was focus. It was your quiet willingness to embrace what others fled from. Say it to yourself as both a reminder and a vow. I embrace boredom to build greatness. Every human being must eventually face one defining question. What terrifies you more, the possibility of failure or the certainty of regret? Most choose the first. They tell themselves it's safer not to try, that waiting for the right time will protect them from disappointment. But that belief is a lie, whispered by fear. The Stoics called it a distortion of the mind, a failure of perception that makes you mistake temporary pain for permanent danger. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short life, but that we make it short by wasting it." And he was right. You don't lose your life all at once. You trade it away, one hesitation at a time. Every time you hold back because you're afraid to fail, you die a little. Modern psychology calls this loss aversion, the tendency to fear losing more than we desire to gain. It's hardwired into the human brain. Our ancestors survived by avoiding risk, by running from the unknown. But what kept them alive now keeps us small. In a world where opportunity demands courage, this ancient instinct becomes a prison. The Stoics learned to break those bars by reframing failure itself. They didn't see it as loss, but as refinement. Marcus Aurelius faced betrayal, war, and plague. Epictetus endured slavery and exile. They both understood that pain is inevitable, but regret is optional. You will suffer, regardless of what you choose. The only question is whether your suffering will be the pain of discipline or the pain of decay. One builds character, the other builds despair. Imagine the soldier standing at the edge of battle. The air is thick with fear, the mind screaming that retreat is safer. But behind him, his commander has burned the ships. There is no way home. The only direction left is forward. This ancient strategy wasn't madness, it was psychological clarity. When retreat is removed, the mind stops hesitating. When failure is no longer an option, effort becomes pure. The Stoics understood this principle centuries before any army applied it. They knew that when you close the door to surrender, creativity and resilience awaken. Epictetus taught that the greatest freedom lies in accepting necessity. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." Mastery begins the moment you decide that quitting is no longer on the table. When you remove the option to retreat, the mind stops wasting energy on excuses and starts channeling everything into progress. Behavioral psychology calls this the fear conditioning loop. When you avoid what scares you, you teach your brain that avoidance equals safety. Each act of avoidance strengthens fear's control, but when you confront the fear and survive it, the brain rewires itself. The danger signal weakens, the courage signal grows. The Stoics practiced this long before neuroscience existed. They deliberately walked toward discomfort, toward risk, toward uncertainty, not because they were fearless, but because they were determined to become free. Look at the father who works 2 jobs to keep his family afloat. He doesn't have the luxury of surrender. Look at the entrepreneur who pours every ounce of effort into his vision, knowing that failure could cost him everything. Look at the artist who creates despite rejection, the soldier who fights knowing tomorrow isn't promised. These people embody the Stoic mindset, acting as if failure isn't an option, because in truth, the only real failure would be not to act at all. Failure is not final, it's feedback. It's life's way of sharpening your tools, testing your endurance, teaching you what theory never could. Every setback you face refines your strategy, builds your patience, exposes your limits so you can surpass them. The Stoics called this the obstacle as the way. They saw every hardship as raw material for growth. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The modern translation is simple. The wall you fear to face is the wall you must climb. You don't overcome fear by thinking. You overcome it by doing. You act not in the absence of fear, but in defiance of it. Fear will always whisper, "What if it doesn't work?" The Stoic answers, "What if it does? And I never tried." The truth is this: failure is temporary. Regret is permanent. Failure leaves scars that tell stories. Regret leaves silence that never ends. Failure gives you lessons. Regret gives you nothing but the weight of what might have been. Failure ends when you rise again. Regret begins when you stop rising altogether. Think of your life as a book. Every chapter is written with the ink of your choices. If you never risk failure, your story remains blank. The Stoics believed that it is better to write a flawed masterpiece than to die with an empty page. Life punishes the timid far more brutally than it punishes the bold. The timid suffer daily, from hesitation, from second-guessing, from the quiet torment of knowing they are capable of more. The bold suffer briefly, from effort, from defeat, from temporary pain. But they emerge wiser, stronger, freer. When you decide that failure isn't an option, something profound happens. Your energy consolidates. Your mind stops fragmenting between what if and if only. Every ounce of you points forward. The fear doesn't disappear, but it becomes fuel. Every obstacle becomes data. Every mistake becomes momentum. That is the Stoic secret, turning adversity into acceleration. You don't need to be reckless, you need to be resolved. The Stoic doesn't deny risk. He calculates it, prepares for it, and then commits completely. He burns his ships not out of arrogance, but out of faith in his own endurance. He knows that partial commitment is a slow death. Total commitment, even when it hurts, is freedom. This is what it means to act as if failure isn't an option. It means showing up with full presence, refusing to retreat, embracing the unknown with steady eyes. It means building your life like a fortress. One stone, one trial, one lesson at a time, until even failure itself becomes part of your design. Because one day when your breath slows and your story ends, all your fears will vanish and only one question will remain. Did I use my time well? When that day comes, may you not whisper excuses. May you whisper conviction. May you say, I built my life. I wasted nothing. If you're ready to stop existing and start building, join the Brotherhood of Builders. Like, comment, and subscribe, not for entertainment, but for evolution. This is the true Stoic way. Look in the mirror again, the same mirror from the beginning, the one that once reflected hesitation, distraction, and delay. Look deeper now. Do you see it? That spark behind your eyes. The quiet steadiness of someone who has stopped drifting and started building. You've walked through the fires of discipline, stood in the stillness of boredom, cut through the fog of confusion, and faced the fear of failure head-on. You've chosen the narrow road, the deliberate life, the Stoic way. Time is the fire in which we burn, and you, my friend, are no longer running from the flames. You are building within them. Each second that passes is fuel. Each choice, each act of will, another brick in the architecture of your becoming. The same fire that consumes the careless refines the disciplined. It burns away distraction, softens arrogance, and forges strength in those who dare to stand inside its heat. Discipline taught you that comfort is not kindness, it is seduction. Every act of self-control became a declaration that you are more than your impulses. Clarity showed you that a focused life is a free life. Momentum revealed that consistency, not passion, is what moves mountains. The builders around you reminded you that strength is contagious, that greatness grows in the company of those who demand more of themselves. Boredom taught you presence, the ability to stay when others flee. And fearless action showed you that life doesn't reward those who wait for permission. It honors those who step forward anyway. Now you understand what the Stoics always knew. Time is not a river carrying you downstream, it is a forge. Every day you enter that forge to shape yourself into something unbreakable. Each moment is a choice, to waste or to wield. The world will still whisper the same temptations. It will tell you to rest, to slow down, to surrender your focus to the endless noise. But you will remember what you've learned here, that the true reward of discipline is not success, but freedom, the quiet knowing that you are in command of your own destiny. And when doubt returns, as it always will, you will return to the mirror. But this time, you will see someone different staring back, someone who acts with intention, who lives with clarity, who works with momentum, someone who doesn't chase fleeting inspiration, but builds an empire of self-respect, one deliberate decision at a time. The Stoics never promised ease, they promised meaning. They never offered comfort, They offered control. And you, by walking this path, have chosen both meaning and mastery over the illusion of safety. Time is still burning. The question is what you'll create with the fire. Say it with conviction, not as motivation, but as a vow. I build my life with relentless discipline. Say it as a reminder that you are not here to drift, to scroll, to wait. You are here to build. And when others ask how you stay calm in chaos, how you stay steady when life shakes you, tell them the truth. You walk the Stoic way. Join us. Walk beside those who refuse to waste their fire. This is the true Stoic way.